Welcome to another session conducted by the Crown Corporate Campus with regard to the company secretarial practices. And today we are going to discuss about the company formation and administration. So, company formation and administration is more of a practical thing that I want to teach you practically during the live sessions that I will be doing. Here, I will just be initiating the conversation, just telling you what ought to be done by the company secretary with regard to company incorporation and the company formation and how you administer or continue to administer the company after the incorporation is what we are going to discuss here. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritties of the practicality because the practicality we'll be discussing at the live sessions. So from the incorporation of a company, that is from the formation of a company up until the company closes down, there are several administrative responsibilities of a company secretary as well. The main ones out of those will be highlighted in this lecture. Right. So before we study about the company formation, first and foremost, we should know what are the types of companies that are there. Because sometimes a client would come to you and tell the client's requirement. Client don't particularly know what type of a company that the client wants to initiate. In that sort of situation, we will have to advise the client on a good company type to suit the requirements of your client. So therefore, under our Companies Act number 7 of 2007, let's see what are the types of companies that are available. So there are, of course, limited companies, the most famous type. We also have unlimited companies, which is extremely unfamous, and also we have companies limited by guarantee, especially when it comes to charity organizations or not-for-profit organizations. We can go for a company limited by guarantee. But mostly majority of clients will come to you with regard to limited companies, out of which also there are three types. There are public limited companies, private limited companies, and offshore companies. So basically majority of your clients will be with regard to private limited companies. Why? Even to become a company secretary of a public limited company, there are some additional requirements that are there, especially with regard to your experience of being a company secretary. So therefore, we are going to study the private company incorporation process, which is the basic level that you ought to know. Minimum to register a private limited company, you need to have a clear idea. So today I'll be teaching you mainly focusing on the private limited company aspect on the incorporation of a company, because majority of the clients who come to you would be starting private limited companies, which later on might convert to a public limited company, but at least the initiation of it begins as a private limited company. Right. So what are private companies? A company will be a private company only and if only it complies with the provisions of section 27, which requires the articles of that company to include provisions. So with regard to private limited companies, important section is section 27 of the Companies Act number 7 of 2007. According to section 27 of the Companies Act, it says that the articles of a private limited company should state these. First one, prohibit the company from offering shares or other securities issued by the company to the public. Of course, you can't collect public funds or you can't issue your shares or any other security to the public because it's a private limited company. That's the main difference between a private limited company and a public limited company. Public limited company can collect funds from the public, whereas private limited companies can't. So therefore, particularly articles of association of a private limited company should emphasize the fact that shares or other securities like debentures cannot be issued to the public. Second point, limit the number of shareholders to a 50. That's another important thing you need to remember. Usually the clients that come to us for incorporation, of course, have less than 50 shareholders, but you have to inform your client about it. Maximum number of shareholders that a private company can have is 50. 50, not including shareholders who are employees of the company. For these 50, the employees who also have shares in the company, they are not counted. Employees who also have shares in the company are not counted. Employees who are ex-employees now, whilst employees, they have got shares, Now they are ex-employees, but they will also not be counted under this 50. So employees of the company or former employees of the company who became shareholders of the company while being employees of such company and who have continued to be shareholders after ceasing to be employees of the company, they are not counted into this 50. Simply remember, private limited companies cannot issue their shares to the public. First requirement. Second requirement, maximum number of shareholders is 50. That 50 does not include employees or ex-employees who got shares whilst being employees and continue to have the shares even after they left the company. Okay. So main two requirements of a private limited company, remember, cannot issue shares to the public, maximum 50 shareholders. These basic requirements of law, that's why particularly lawyers are given the company secretary qualification. Why? These legal aspects we have studied under company law. So those of you who are not lawyers, these nitty-gritties you need to keep in mind, because without that you can't advise a client appropriately. Right. So you know what a private limited company is, and then now the next main step of registering a company is you need to have a EROC account. That is an electronic registrar of company. In that website you need to have a account. So you need to create an account, right? Register user profile on EROC portal. So you, through an email verification, you have to have a profile. You have to open a profile in the EROC portal and do a email verification and see if your email is connected to the EROC platform. Because without actually the name searching of a name part can be done even without an account. I'll come to that. But thereafter incorporation of a company, you need to have an EROC account. Then only you can continue to do that. So what are the company secretary roles with regard to creating an EROC account? Ensure eligibility to act as a secretary, right? So now particular requirements have been brought forward by the registrar of companies that company secretary should have certain qualifications. You should be registered as a company secretary to become a company secretary of a company. So do you really have the requirements of becoming a company secretary? If you want to verify that, you can just give a call to the registrar of companies and question them, ask them. That is one way to go. Or even if you go to the ROC website, you can read and understand what are the requirements of becoming a company secretary. More about it I will explain to you at our session that we are going to do, the live session. I will give a further explanation on this, because I know that majority of students usually have this particular concern whether you can act as a company secretary or not. So therefore, about that I will emphasize to you later. Maintain secure access credentials. So once you make your profile in the particular platform, you have to be very, very careful with regard to your credentials. Why? Once you start acting as a company secretary, right? Once you start acting as a company secretary, remember, you are responsible towards the company profiles that you hold, right? Therefore, your login credentials are confidential, right? So you have to be very, very careful that no one else gets to know your login credentials, because if someone gets into your EROC platform or EROC profile, they can do whatever they want with the companies that are there. So you have to be very, very careful to safeguard your access credentials, right? So now you have created a EROC account. Then when you are registering a company, what are the requirements or what are the documentation that you need to have to register a company? An application for incorporation of a company other than a company limited by guarantee. Now this particular slide does not apply for companies limited by guarantee. So basically, if you are going to register a private limited company, no problem, you can go with this particular schedule. But if it's a company limited by guarantee, you can't follow this. An application for incorporation of a company other than a company limited by guarantee may be made to the Registrar General of Company. So we actually, through the EROC platform, we make the request to the Registrar of Companies, Registrar General of Companies. First one, essential, you need to fill in a form 1. Now don't worry about what is this form 1, how does it look, all of that we are going to discuss in the live session. How do you fill in the details to form 1, what details you want to get from your clients, how do you get such details from your client, everything I'll be teaching you at the live session. This is just to give you an introduction to what you ought to know, right? So you have to have a form 1 that is in the prescribed form. Form 1 will have several details. with regard to the company's number of shares, shareholders, directors, company secretary, all these details. Actually, it's the main application form for registration. We call it the Form 1. Then it should be signed by each of the initial shareholders. Now we know shareholders is not a static thing in a company. Shareholders keep on changing. People can sell their shares to other shareholders and move out. That is okay. Form 1 will only be signed by the initial shareholders, meaning when shareholders change, we don't sign it again and again. Company එකට එක form 1 එකයි තියෙන්නේ. Company will only have one form 1 which will be signed by the initial shareholders together with the following documents. So these are the other documents. First one, a declaration stating that to the best of such persons or person's knowledge, the name of the company is not identical or similar to that of an existing company. So when you are naming a company, I'm going to come to this also again later. When you are naming a company, you have to be very careful. Your name cannot be similar to another company name, or you can't name your company in a way that is similar to another company's name. So you have to make a declaration that to the best of your ability that your company or the company that you're going to, so the shareholders, directors will sign and say that, you know, this company name that we have put, we believe that no other company have this similar name. So you don't have to make a declaration now in the EROC platform. It's just a matter of a tick. You can tick it to say that to the best of your ability, no other company have a similar name. That is the declaration. Second thing, you have to submit the articles of association of the company if different from the articles set out in the first schedule to the Act. So in the first schedule to the Companies Act number 7 of 2007, articles are given. So usually companies draft their own articles. So if your articles are different to the articles given in the first schedule of the Act, you have to submit that as well, which has to be signed by each of the initial shareholders. Again, that will also be signed by the initial shareholders only. Once the shareholders change, company don't submit articles again and again. So it will only be signed by the initial shareholders. Then the consent form of each of the initial directors under section 203 to act as a director of the company, we call it the Form 18. We call it the Form 18. Every director has to sign a Form 18. So we fill in the details to the EROC platform. Of the details, you can get the copy and then you get it signed by the particular director. So that is Form 18, and the consent form of the initial secretary under subsection 2 of section 221 to act as a secretary of the company, that is called Form 19. So basically, you need to submit a Form 1. You need to submit the declaration, that is a matter of a ticking, the articles of association, Form 18, any number of Form 18s depending on the number of directors that you have, and a Form 19. So these are the documents you need to submit to register a company. If you have this set of documents ready, no problem, you can register a company. So you have to do this step by step. One by one, you have to understand what are the documents that we have to have. So when you take the EROC platform, very easy, not like those days. Those days we have to take, physical copies of everything, and it has had to be in our head. What are the documents that you need? We need to remember. But now it's not a requirement. The platform directs you from one to another. So the incorporation has been made very easy. So these are the documents again. Form 1, the declaration, articles of association, Form 18 and Form 19. Right. Then, now coming to the name requirements. I told you with regard to naming a company, there are some specific requirements that you have to adhere to. So depending on the type of company, name will be different. Especially if it's a listed company, right? If it's a listed company, name should end with public limited company or PLC. So meaning of listed company, meaning that it's a public company. Yeah? All public companies are not listed companies, but simply public companies that are listed will be considered as a public limited company, or you can abbreviate it as PLC, right? So public limited company or PLC. Then if it's every other limited company, if it's any other limited company, you just put limited or LTD. You just put limited or LTD. Usually this usage is very rare. Private companies this is the most important. You name it as private limited, private within brackets, limited outside, or you can abbreviate it as PVT Ltd. So private limited or PVT Ltd. Public limited companies, usually if it's a listed company, it will go as public limited company or PLC. Private limited companies will go as private limited or PVT Ltd. Any other limited company can go just as limited or Ltd. There's a spelling mistake here. It should be 1T, yeah? LIMITED, limited or Ltd. Right? So again, for you, what is important is this last one. Mainly, majority of clients who come to you would come to start private limited companies. So for private limited companies, you name it as private limited or PVT Ltd. Of course, you can ask your client, what do they prefer? The private limited in its entirety or it abbreviated as PVT Ltd. Depending on your client's priority, you can use it accordingly, right? Okay, so with regard to naming the company, search and reserve the company name. First, you have to do a name search to see whether there is a similar name. To see if there is a similar name, you have to do a name search. Usually, the company name, once you reserve it, will be valid for 3 months. Meaning, once you save the name of the company, within 3 months, you have to incorporate the company. If you don't incorporate the company within 3 months, there is a risk that you might lose the company name. So, once you reserve the company name, you have to do the incorporation within 3 months, right? So, what is the company secretary role with regard to naming? Ensure compliance with the naming rules. The company secretary should be very well aware about the naming rules. Why sometimes clients come and say, okay, I want to put the term Sri Lanka in my name, or I want to put the term university in my company. Can I do that? Right? So you should be able to tell. Usually names that suggest an affiliation to the government, you can't use them. Right? You can't use any obscene terms in naming a company, any bad words, those things can't be used. You can't use a name which is similar to that of an already existing company name. I have so many practical examples to tell you where clients have even come forward and asked me very famous, how can you say, very famous product names. Now, for example, simple example, I'll tell you, Sunlight, right? So I have made a soap, can I name it Sunlight? Something like that. So you should be able to tell your client, therefore you should know what are the naming rules. I'll teach more about what are the names you can use, what are the names you can't use at the live session. I'll just simply tell you here, names that have that shows an affiliation to the government cannot be used. First point. Second point, names that are similar to that or to an already existing company name, you can't use them. You can't use obscene terms or obscene words in naming a company. You can't name a company in a way that is derogatory to another company, right? You can't name a company. For example, let's say I start a company called Dilani's Fashion. My name is Dilani. So I start a company called Dilani's Fashion. So you can't start a company called Better Than Dilani's, because then it's not good on my company names. Things like that, right? Those are practical, some naming rules are there. Company secretary should know what the naming rules are and avoid any prohibited or misleading names. So as I told you, depending on the company name rulings or depending on the company name rules, always remember to use the most appropriate term. Otherwise, again and again, you will have to repeat the process of naming your company. So without doing that, make sure that you get it one-off correct and not to use any prohibited or misleading names. And especially remember, you can't use a name which is similar to an already existent name. All right. So moving on to the next slide based on the check whether your company name is available. So first you have to do a name search. Before registering a private limited company, you need to help your client to find a unique name for their business. So as I told you, always remember it should be a unique name and not a name that is already existent, not a name that will go against the rules. So you have to find an appropriate name. Searching for a unique company name can be done online through the website of the Department of Registrar of Companies. You can actually do a name search in the website itself, as I told you before, even without a profile. You don't even need to have a profile to do a name search, right? this section of the website can be accessed even without an account. If you are checking for your company name through the EROC website, all you need to do is type in the company name you've picked to see if it is available. So you can see here, search for company name. You can just type your name in here. Just a matter of typing the name there, right? And you press the search, right? This is now here is the login icon, right? So even without logging in, this is accessible. Even if you don't have an account, you can do this part. Searching the name you can do, right? Thereafter, now this is usually how you will have it. So here I have not logged in when I took this particular photo because login icon is here. Even without logging in, you can just simply type the company name here, search it, and you will get either two things usually. First thing, if another company already exists with the name you've chosen, the website will show it to you. Now here I have taken one of my clients' business names, one of my friends, so that is okay. So I have typed the company name. Now this name is already taken, so you can't register a name or register a company using that name. You can see here they say this name already exists and cannot be reserved. Please add a word and try again. So you can maybe add another term to this or something and try again. But anyway, this name is not available. So if the name that you search is not available, this sort of an icon will show. However, if it is available, if there's no other company registered under the same name, the website will show you this one. If there's no other name, now for example, I searched a name called Find a Company, right? So Find a Company, there's no other company called Find a Company. So therefore, they give you the option to proceed now. But for you to proceed further, you need to have an account. To proceed thereafter, do this company search, you don't have to have a profile, but to proceed thereafter, you need to open an account with in the EROC platform. So that is how you first do a name search, right? Then we come to the name reservation process. So first you have to, so when you log into your profile, usually when you take the profile like this, once you log in, at this end, in this corner, this list will be there. There's further things down. I just took a part of it only. The dashboard, name reservation, registration of auditors, registration of secretary, register for society, list is there, right? Out of them, you have to select the name reservation. After you select the name what you want, you can even go from that proceed now icon, what I showed you before. You can go from this proceed now icon also, but you can also go for the correct way of doing it is to go through the name reservation icon. Okay. Then get the proposed name of the company. After that, select the type of company and enter the desired company name. So then you will get then you have to get the proposed name of the company. Ask your client for the company name. Now, this also when you are taking, you have to particularly tell the client to check the spellings in the English name, to write it correctly in Sinhala, maybe to put it on Google Translate or something, and tell the client itself to give you the company name in Tamil. You need to have the company name in all three languages. I usually use a sort of like a document that I send to the client to get these details. I'll share it with you in the live class. Remember to get the name correct, because later on, enough and more, even I have come across this situation. Clients say, මෙහෙම නෙමෙයි මම කිව්වේ, මෙතනට ඇල පිල්ලක් එන්න ඕනේ, මෙතනට ස්පිල්ලක් එන්න ඕනේ, මෙතන A එකක් එන්න ඕනේ, මෙතන E එකක් එන්න ඕනේ කියලා කටවචනෙට you don't ask the name. You don't ask the name just out of a phone call, right? Get it in writing. So you need to have the name, proposed name of the company. So then you have to select the type of the company and enter the desired company name. So important things, type of the company and the desired company name. Here you have to put the type of the company, private, limited or anything, right? And then here you have to enter the company name and you can use the searching icon, right? Here you select whether it's a private, limited company or whatnot, company name, and then you do the selection, okay? Right. If the company name is available and you'd like to reserve it, click on proceed now. So if your company name is available, right? Let's say company name is available, you can move on to proceed now. These values might be a little different. Sometimes now, usually you can go for the proceed now. If the name is available, if the earlier, as I told you before, so now this is after you go into the profile. If you do this only, you will get this inside the profile itself. Then you can continue with the proceed now. Now, in case if that name is already there, this icon will be there. They don't give you to proceed. Okay, you can see even the company's PV number will be given, right? With the company name, the company's PV number will also be given. Right. So then you can go for proceed now. If the name isn't available, it will indicate that the company name needs to change. If there's an abbreviation in the company name, ROC requires an explanation. Now, abbreviation in the sense, let's say I name my company Dilani PVC. Now, what does PVC stand for? ROC will ask for an explanation. You have to say, why did I say PVC? Things like that. Okay? Right. Now we come to the company registration. Now first we have registered our name. Now always remember, in the incorporation process, the first step is the name reservation. After you reserve the name only, you do everything else, right? First step is the name reservation. Once you reserve the name, you will get a name reservation number. Thereby we do the incorporation on the name reservation number. So therefore, name reservation is very, very important. Once your company name is approved, you should receive an email with the name approval number. So you will get an email. That's why I told you your email should be intact, and you should always keep in contact with the email. Check your email all the time, right? Because if you can't access your email, then it's a problem. Check your email. There will be a name approval number given, right? The EROC system guides you through the following key stages for company registration. So the EROC system will guide you, nothing for you to study and keep. So nothing for you to study and keep, the ERO system will guide you, right? To fill the company details. All that's left for you to do is to select the type of company and provide basic company details. So always you should know the type of the company and provide basic company details like what? You should know the registered office address of the company, then the province that it belongs to, the district, the divisional secretariat division, the Grama Niladhari division, the postal code, and the email address of the company. These are to register the company. These details are to register the company. First, you need to gather these details. Now, remember very well, I have explained this to you before also. Sometimes on and off, people keep on calling companies, calling the directors, shareholders, whoever spoke to you, and say, can I know the registered address of the company? Okay, you write down the address, you keep the phone, type it, and now they have asked for the, let's say, divisional secretariat division. Again, you call the shareholder and ask what is the divisional secretariat. It's very cumbersome for you as well as to your shareholder. Other than doing, answering your calls, nothing else that person could do. So you need to have a mechanism to collect this one-off. මේ ටික එකපාරම එකතු කරගන්න. එතකොට ඒ රෙජිස්ට්‍රේෂන් එකට ඕනේ ඔක්කොම ඩොකියුමන්ට්ස් ටික ඔක්කොම ඩීටේල්ස් ටික ගත්තයින් පස්සේ රෙජිස්ට්‍රේෂන් එක කරගෙන යන්න තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒක නිසා තමයි මේ ස්ලයිඩ් එක දාලා තියෙන්නේ මොන මොන ඩීටේල්ස් ඉල්ල ගන්න ඕනේ. කොහොමද ඉල්ල ගන්නේ? I will show you in the live session, right? After that. So this is the platform that you need to fill with regard to the company. So here the company name and things will come. So here you have to put the address in line 1, line 2, province. Those details are there. As for the main objective of your company, select what suits your company the most from the options that are available in the menu. So you have to select some objectives of the company here, right? Now, the objective selection, I can't say that it is not important, because sometimes for some tax concessions and all what you're going to rely on, the selection of your objectives will be important. So therefore, based on the objectives mentioned in your articles of association, select the most apparent or the best option of the objectives, because you can't type it. They have given some options, you have to select out of them. So select what is most that will most suit your company out of the options that are given in the menu. So thereafter, there is a next button here. You can press the next and go to the next page, right? Now, next page you have to enter the shareholders details, right? What are the details? Under shareholders, you need to include details of directors, company secretary, and shareholders. So not only the shareholders, directors, company secretary, as well as shareholders. Enter information about each director's first and last name. So what are the things you need to know about directors? First and last name, province, district, divisional secretariat, division, address, passport, NIC number, phone number, email address. All of these are required, right? Even the birth date in the next part, birth date and things are also important. I will show it to you, right? By clicking the add new. So you put details of one director, you can put add new and go to the next director and enter details of the next director. By clicking add new button, you can enter details of multiple directors if the company should have any, right? All of these practically I will show you how each what do you call it face of the platform comes in. I will show you in the live sessions, right? After adding the directors, fill in the information of the designated registered company secretary from their name to their NIC number. After adding the directors, fill the information of the company secretary and their NIC number. Usually when you're the company secretary, the platform will automatically, when you put your ID number, platform will automatically put your license number and whatnot. This includes adding their registration number to confirm they fit the local regulation. So your registration number, if you are a registered company secretary, once you put your ID number, your registration number will automatically come to the form. A resident company secretary must be appointed before incorporation as their details are a part of the initial submission. So you need to have a resident company secretary, especially with regard to overseas companies, you need to have a resident company secretary. After that, you will need to enter the shareholders details. Remember, private limited company can now be formed with just one shareholder. Very, very important. Earlier we could not, but under Companies Act number 7 of 2007, there can be single shareholder companies. If a person comes to you and say, I want to start a single shareholder company, don't say no, because now it is possible under Companies Act number 7 of 2007. Right. So these are the platforms for the director, shareholders and the company secretary. Then you can proceed by pressing next. These are the other platforms here. You can see under directors, the title, first name, local address, foreign address, those details are asked. Right. Then what do you do? So these platforms, all of these, how do you fill it in the platform? All of that I will teach you at the live session, right? Okay. Download, fill and upload relevant documents. Now in the platform, what happens is you manually fill in all the details. Then they will fill the details into the format, right? The format, they will fill the details automatically in the platform and given you the document to download. What you need to do is download it, take a printout, a photocopy, a printout, a color printout is better. Take a color printout, get the signatures of the shareholders, directors, company secretary. You have to scan the document and upload it again. That is the procedure, right? So you fill the documents manually, download, then they will give you the structure downloaded, download it, get signatures, scan and upload. The system generates form 1, form 18 and form 19. System will generate it. Click the download button to receive PDF versions of the form. It requires your signature along with additional details that you have to manually enter. So form 1 will be the business registration form. Form 18 will be the consent and certificate of directors and form 19 will be the consent and certificate of secretaries. We discussed this before. After you completed filling the forms with the signature of the company secretary and other signatures, scan these documents. So once you get the signatures, you have to scan the documents and you have to save it as a PDF file. Always remember, when you're uploading for registration, you should upload PDF files. They don't take any other format. You have to always upload as PDF file. They don't accept any other file type to be valid. Upload each individual file carefully and to its relevant field. Very, very important when you're uploading. Remember, this is something that you have to do very carefully because in the EROC platform, everything is happening in a machine format. So if you upload in the wrong field, it will be the wrong document. So therefore, upload it correctly. Make sure your scanned documents are clear, properly signed. These are the things you have to think about. So when you scan, make sure that it's clear. It should be properly signed, right? Usually, be very, very neat and clean. If directors are signing, if everyone is signing in black, make sure that everyone have signed in black. Or if one is not one in blue, one in red, one in black, without that, Make sure that it's very clear, properly signed. It should be in A4 size and not merged or edited PDF. So remember, now when you are uploading a scan document, to never ever do any alterations once the director, shareholders, company secretary have signed. Why? It is illegal. If you do any alterations in the documents after the signatures have been placed, it is illegal. So do not do any mergers, editing of the PDF, as incorrect submissions can be rejected potentially without a refund. Even without a refund, they can completely say that they are not going to give you to register the company. So what is the company secretary role here? I told you, you need to submit the articles also together with Form 1, Form 18 and Form 19. So for that, the drafting of the article should be done by the company secretary, and the company secretary should also sign the Form 19, should also sign the Form 19, which is the consent certificate of the secretary. Right. Then submit your articles of association, as I told you, with Form 1, Form 18 and Form 19. You have to submit your articles of association as well. Additionally, the articles of association need to be drafted by the company secretary. The company may either adopt the standard set of articles of association in Table A of the Companies Act of Sri Lanka, number 7 of 2007, or draft its own articles of association. Personally, majority of clients I have come across have wanted their articles to be drafted anew. So as you might know, we lawyers or company secretaries don't draft for every company. We don't draft it anew. There is a structure. I will provide you with the structure at the live session. I will give you the structure to the articles of association. If a client should come to you, you will have your articles of association. What are the things that you need to amend also in the articles? I will give it to you at the live class, right? If you want, you can use the standard set of articles provided in Table A of Schedule 1 of the Companies Act number 7 of 2007. If your company has foreign shareholding, objective should be clearly stated in the articles of association, and the company name should appear in English, Sinhala and Tamil on the first page. So especially if you are going for a company that has foreign shareholding, name in the first page of the article should be mentioned in all three languages, English, Sinhala and Tamil, right? Okay, then after you submit all the documents, all of these, even your articles, once you get the signatures of the shareholders, you have to scan it and upload it, right? Now, sometimes articles of association is quite a big document, so you will have to, compress it before you upload it in the particular site, because there are document sizes also provided in the EROC platform. Finally, you have to do the payment for registration. After you fill in and upload all the necessary documents, you can now make the payments. You can pay either from a debit or a credit card. Payment can be done through cards. After your company registration is approved, you will get your digital certificate now. This is after you do the payment, then you have to just wait, right? So once your company is registered, you will get your digital certificate of incorporation via email, because now ROC is going for a paperless structure. So more than giving the certificate of incorporation, usually they will send a digital certificate of incorporation, and you can download it easily from the online portal. Plus, the old extra steps of submitting a share allocation form for founders is no longer needed right away. So earlier there was a requirement to submit a share allocation form. That is not a requirement now to do it right then, right? Only when you issue shares later. Later when you issue shares only, you have to do the share allocation form. This makes the whole process simpler and faster for you. So again, with regard to payment and getting the certificate of incorporation, so with regard to the payment, right, what is the secretary's role? Verify accuracy of documents. When you're uploading the documents, I usually tell my students, check not once, not twice, check at least 10 times, right? So verify the accuracy of your documents. Always retain a copy for your records. Actually, how you maintain particular folders in your computer also, I will be teaching you in the live class. In the live class, I will tell you how do you maintain, how I particularly maintain all my companies under a particular folder. How do you do that also? I will teach you. You have to retain copies for your records. Then also, once you get the certificate of incorporation, you have to maintain the incorporation records, and you will have to issue share certificates if it is required later on. Right. give public notice of incorporation. Now I have to make a disclosure here. This is not a requirement now because ROC actually does it. It's mentioned here. Now ROC does it. Earlier we had to do it, the company secretaries itself. Now ROC does this part of giving public notice of incorporation. The company registration process doesn't end here. After everything else is done and confirmed, the final procedure is to give public notice. This was usually done by publishing a small blurb on the local papers and the government gazette. So you had to put it on the local newspapers as well as in the government gazette. Previously, this was a compulsory step that the company had to complete and pay for, and it couldn't be done online. So usually in the EROC platform, everything was done online. But this particular thing was the problem, right? Therefore, it couldn't be done online. This should include, so in the newspaper, in the government gazette, these are the things that you have to put forward. The company's registration number, the office, and the name of the company had to be publicized. All right. So earlier, the company had to include in the local newspaper and the government gazette, you had to publicize the company's registration number, registered office address, and the name of the company. And it needed to be published in at least one issue of the gazette and one issue of a daily newspaper in all three languages, in Sinhala, Tamil, and English. Now, both the paper notice and the gazette publication or the gazette notification are handled by the registrar of companies, ensuring the process is properly managed and completed efficiently. So now you don't have to give public notice as the company secretary. ROC does it for you. So again, your job is made easier. Right. So post-incorporation compliance. Now this lesson is on company incorporation as well as administration. Okay. So how do you administer a company? What are the steps we do in the administration of a company? So you have to always remember, after you register a company, annually, yearly, you have to submit the annual returns. That is as form 15. Very, very important duty of the secretary. You have to keep track of your companies and keep a track on what day each company have to submit their annual returns or form 15. Changes to directors or secretary. So sometimes directors change in a company, secretary change. You have to fill a form 20 and submit. Statutory registers and minutes. So you have to maintain registers of shareholders, of directors, of other documents of the company have to be maintained, of shares. There should be a register of shares, and also minutes of meetings have to be maintained accurately. Again, what is the company secretary's role? Ensure timely filling. So usually I believe to be a company secretary, you have to be a very efficient person as well as a very organized person. If you have not planned your work properly, very difficult to become a company secretary because you have to do your things in a timely way. You don't have time to postpone. Advise directors on compliance. So whenever they don't submit, whenever companies don't submit their and form 15s or form 20s, always we have to advise the directors that this is the procedure, this is how you have to get it done, especially when it comes to form 15, because it will incur particular charge also. Directors, shareholders are very they very reluctant to upload it, but you have to always tell them that it's a legal requirement and make sure that the companies submit form 15s in time. Right. So the key in the entire process, what are the key obligations of the company secretary? First one, mandatory appointment, right? Usually, why do I say that it's a mandatory appointment? I personally believe for every company, it is easy. At least it's a burden off the heads of the directors, shareholders. If you have an appointed company secretary, then easily you can get the work done. Compliance and a compliance advisor to the board. So whenever the company secretary is expected to know the law, expected to know the regulations. So when the company or the board is not adhering to the regulations, they can always say, this has not been followed. So that advice have to be given by the company secretary to the board. You should have a close connection with the board of directors as well as the shareholders. Statutory filings via the EROC platform. So statutorily, what the filings that you need to do from time to time, you have to do it in an appropriate way. Even when there's a name change of a company, or address change, or a director change, secretary change, everything, there's a documentation process involved. Those have to be maintained. Maintenance of registers and records. So all written documents of the company are under the hands of the company secretary. If something goes wrong, company secretary will be responsible. That's why I always tell you, though now the company secretary work has been made easier through the EROC platform, your liability still remains the same. Your liability has not reduced. If something goes wrong, you will be liable. So therefore, you have to be very careful. Maintain all records with you. And finally, corporate governance support, right? You have to help your companies to do their corporate governance in an effective way, to govern their corporate in the correct way. So there are corporate governance requirements, things that company secretaries have to advise the companies about. We'll come to that at the we have one of the lectures on corporate governance practices with regard to company secretaries too. So that also we will be discussing on the next at one of the other recorded lessons that I will be doing for you. So here I only gave you the nitty-gritties of incorporation. We only discussed the nitty-gritties of incorporation, the basics of incorporation. But how you do it, how do you collect details from your clients, everything I will be doing for you at the live session. So hoping that you will join the live sessions after getting to know the basics. I'll meet you at the next lecture.